Before the 20th century truly roared into existence, the automobile was not a tool, it was a toy. A loud, terrifying, fragile novelty built exclusively for the Vanderbilts, the Astors, and European royalty. If you lived in rural America in 1908, and almost everyone lived in rural America in 1908, your world ended about 10 miles from your front door. That was the absolute maximum distance a horse could travel and return in a single day. You were isolated, you were hopelessly stuck in the mud, and the idea that a mechanical contraption could set you free was nothing short of science fiction. Then came a stubborn, obsessively driven man named Henry Ford. He looked at the playthings of the rich and made a declaration that sounded like pure madness. I will build a motor car for the great multitude. He didn't just build a car, he forged a sledgehammer that smashed the 19th century to pieces. He built a machine that created the American middle class, birthed the concept of the weekend, triggered the construction of the interstate highway system, and ultimately paved the very foundation of the modern world. But legends have a funny way of obscuring reality. We look at the Ford Model T today and see a museum piece, a cute, fragile antique sitting quietly under spotlight halos. Don't be fooled, the Model T was not cute. It was a rugged, utilitarian survival vehicle. It was the original off-roader. It was a mechanical beast with a control scheme so utterly alien that a modern Formula One driver would crash it into a ditch within 30 seconds. It broke arms, it rolled over, and its creator's stubbornness almost drove his own empire into the ground. This is the story of the Tin Lizzie, the greatest triumph, the most dangerous anachronism, and the absolute bedrock of global automotive culture. To understand why the Model T hit the world like an asteroid, you have to understand the sheer, miserable reality of 1908 America. There were no highways. There were barely any paved roads outside of major city limits. If it rained, the nation's infrastructure turned into a soup of deep, unforgiving mud. Navigating this wasteland required a horse, a carriage, and endless patience. Automakers of the time, companies with legendary names like Winton, Packard, and Pierce Arrow, weren't trying to solve this problem. They were building heavy, complicated land yachts for bankers who kept them on dry city pavement in New York or Chicago. Henry Ford despised this. Born a farm boy in Michigan, Ford hated grueling agricultural labor. He hated the isolation. He believed deeply that the internal combustion engine was the key to emancipating the common man from the crushing physical toll of 19th century life. Ford's early attempts, the Models A, C, N, and the luxurious, money-losing Model K, were stepping stones. But Ford's investors were relentlessly pressuring him to build bigger, more expensive cars. The profit margins were higher. The prestige was better. Ford's response? He locked himself and his best engineers in a secret room on the third floor of the Paquette Avenue plant. For months, they drafted, argued, and bled over a completely new design. Ford wasn't designing a car to compete with the Packards. He was designing a mechanical horse that wouldn't die of exhaustion. He needed it to be cheap enough that the man turning the wrenches on the assembly line could afford to buy one. He needed it to be light enough to practically float over the mud, but strong enough to take a beating that would shatter a heavy European touring car. The breakthrough came from the unlikeliest of places, a crashed French race car. At a race in Florida, Ford picked up a valve strip from a wrecked European racer. It was incredibly light, yet he couldn't bend it. It was vanadium steel, an alloy virtually unknown in American manufacturing. It required massive 1,500-degree furnaces to produce, but it offered triple the tensile strength of regular steel at a fraction of the weight. Ford went all in. He financed the creation of a steel mill just to secure this metal. And when the Model T was finally unveiled in late 1908, it wasn't just a new car. It was an alien spacecraft dropped into a horse-drawn society. When the first Model Ts rolled out, the automotive press and the wealthy elite scoffed. It looked spindly. It sat ridiculously high off the ground. But that awkward high stance was a stroke of absolute genius. Ford and his brilliant metallurgist, C. Harold Wills, gave the Model T immense ground clearance and a wildly flexible transverse leaf spring suspension. If a wheel dropped into a 2-foot rut, the car didn't brake, it simply leaned and kept pulling. It was the Ford Raptor of its day, built to conquer a country that didn't have roads yet. Under the hood sat a 2.9-liter, side-valve 4-cylinder engine. By modern standards, its specs read like a lawnmower. It generated a humble 20 horsepower, but to measure this machine in horsepower is to entirely miss the point. This engine wasn't designed to scream at high RPMs. It was designed to deliver relentless, low-end torque. It was a tractor's soul crammed into a 1,200-pound featherweight chassis. Top speed was around 40 to 45 miles per hour, a speed that felt absolutely terrifying on wooden artillery wheels over a dirt road. But the true anatomy of the hero wasn't just the car itself. It was how it was born. In 1913, Ford introduced the moving assembly line at the Highland Park plant. Before this, teams of men built a car from the ground up in one spot, taking over 12 hours per vehicle. Ford put the chassis on a moving belt. He broke the assembly down to 84 distinct, highly repetitive steps. Suddenly, a Model T was dropping off the end of the line every 93 minutes, then every 10 seconds. The sheer volume of production was a tidal wave that drowned every other automaker. As production sped up, the price plummeted. It debuted at $850. By the mid-1920s, you could buy a brand new Model T for a staggering $260. And people bought them by the millions. But they didn't just drive them. The Model T was a mobile power plant. Enterprising owners jacked up the rear wheels, attached leather belts, and used that torquey 20-horsepower engine to saw wood, pump water, grind grain, and generate electricity. The Sears Roebuck catalog sold aftermarket kits to turn the car into literally anything you needed. The Model T killed the horse, revolutionized manufacturing, and dragged rural America into the 20th century by the scruff of its neck. It was, without a doubt, the undisputed king of the mechanical world. But absolute power does strange things to the men who wield it. And the king had a dark side. If you ever get the chance to sit in the driver's seat of a Model T, you will immediately realize something horrifying. You have absolutely no idea how to drive it. Henry Ford wanted the car to be idiot-proof for farmers who only knew how to command horses. So, he instituted a control scheme that is best described as a mechanical fever dream. Look at the floor. There are 3 pedals. You might logically think, clutch, brake, gas. You would be dead wrong. The throttle, the gas, is actually a lever on the steering column, right next to the spark advance lever. You operate it with your hand. That pedal on the far left, that's the clutch and gear selector. Push it all the way down, you're in low gear. Let it halfway up, you're in neutral. Take your foot off it entirely, it violently snaps into high gear. The middle pedal, that's reverse. And the right pedal, that's the brake. But it doesn't brake the wheels. It clamps a band around the transmission tail shaft. If you are going downhill and your transmission fails, or the drive shaft snaps, which absolutely happened, you have no brakes. You are just a passenger in a steel coffin hurtling toward a tree. And then there was the act of starting it. Before 1919, there was no electric starter. You had to hand crank the engine. But if you forgot to manually retard the spark lever on the steering column before you cranked, the engine would backfire. The heavy iron crank handle would snap backward with the force of a baseball bat swung by a pro. This happened so frequently that doctors gave the injury a specific medical name, the Ford fracture. Thousands of Americans walked around with broken wrists and forearms, wearing a permanent badge of honor for owning a Tin Lizzie. And we have to talk about the hills. To save money, the Model T used a gravity-fed fuel system. The gas tank was under the front seat. The carburetor was up front, slightly lower. On flat ground, gravity pulled the gas to the engine. Simple, elegant. But if you tried to drive up a steep hill, the carburetor would suddenly be higher than the gas tank. The engine would starve of fuel and die halfway up the incline. The enthusiast solution? Turn the car around and drive up the hill in reverse. Imagine it, a family of 4, dressed in their Sunday best, hurtling backward up a mountain road, looking over their shoulders, engulfed in a choking cloud of exhaust. Buyers put up with these quirks because, for a long time, the Model T was the only game in town. But as the 1920s arrived, the world changed. America had paved roads now. Ironically, thanks to the Model T. Buyers wanted comfort. They wanted speed. They wanted colors other than the famous, fast-drying Japan black that Ford mandated just to keep the assembly line moving. Companies like Chevrolet and Dodge started offering smooth-shifting manual transmissions, water pumps, plush suspensions, and electric starters. Henry Ford's son, Edsel, practically begged his father to update the car. But Henry was fiercely, pathologically stubborn. He believed the Model T was the perfect machine, and that changing it was an insult to his genius. He famously told his engineers, "We've got the best car in the world. Let's keep making it." By 1927, sales were violently plummeting. The Model T hadn't just become outdated, it had become a punchline. The company was hemorrhaging market share. Ford was finally forced to pull the plug, shutting down his massive River Rouge plant for months to retool for the modern Model A. The era of the Tin Lizzie was unceremoniously over, but the machine refused to die. When Ford finally stopped the lines in 1927, there were 15 million Model Ts on the planet. They were dirt cheap, and in the 1930s and 40s, a new generation of young, restless kids, many returning from war with a deep knowledge of mechanics, looked at these discarded jalopies and saw a blank canvas. They realized that if you took a $5 used Model T, unbolted the heavy fenders, threw away the hood, chopped the windshield, and dropped in a bigger engine, you had a terrifyingly fast, lightweight missile. The Ford Model T birthed American hot rodding. The famous T-bucket is the absolute primordial soup of custom car culture. It was the original rebel machine. Without the Model T, there is no hot rod magazine. There is no drag racing. There is no muscle car era. Everything we consider cool about American car culture traces its bloodline back to this spindly, weirdly pedaled farm implement. Today, driving a Model T is a rite of passage for the hardcore gearhead. It's a secret handshake. The people who keep these machines on the road, through clubs like the HHKA and MTFCA, aren't just mechanics. They are preservationists of a lost language. They spend their weekends on internet forums debating the exact pore temperature of Babbitt bearings and the intricate dark arts of magnetocoils. They don't own these cars to go fast. They own them to remember. When you grab that wooden steering wheel and pull the hand throttle, you are reaching back across a century. You are sitting exactly where your great-grandparents sat when they drove into town to see electric lights for the first time. You feel every mechanical clank, every vibration of the explosions happening just inches from your feet. You aren't insulated from the world by sound deadening and lane assist algorithms. You are wrestling with physics. You are alive. The Ford Model T was deeply flawed. It was dangerous. It was stubborn. And it overstayed its welcome. But you cannot view it simply as a car. It was emancipation on four wheels. It was the catalyst that took humanity out of the mud and put us on the asphalt. Every modern supercar, every electric luxury sedan, every truck rolling down the highway today owes its existence to the angry little four-cylinder engine that Henry Ford unleashed on the world. It wasn't just the car that built Ford. It was the machine that built us.